I'm Derrick Jackson. I'm one of the musicians for the International Church of God in Christ Music Department from Memphis, Tennessee. And you're watching MCNetwork.
All right, I'm T.A. Harris with MCNetwork, and I'm here with organist extraordinaire Derrick Jackson. Man, there's so many questions to ask you, but I'm gonna condense them in a few for time's sake. But man, I grew up watching you on YouTube and things coming up, playing the piano, and I'm intrigued by jazz music. I love it. And I know you play a lot of classical.
Yeah.
What started you in the journey to music?
Man, I just remember my dad buying the piano. I might have been 6 years old, I don't know. And I remember when the music store, the delivery people delivered to our house.
Wow.
And me and my brothers and sisters, we sit down and just start banging on the piano, man, and found out that we, could hear some things, because, my mom was known for her singing, but she played the piano and played the guitar when she was a little girl. And my dad used to play organ for churches before he started pastoring. So I guess it was kind of hereditary, all my brothers and sisters, they play, sang, and do something. And actually, most of them can play keys, and they play other instruments, sing. And I ended up being more the keyboard player than the rest of them, but they all do stuff. And I play several other instruments too, but, mostly keys. So that's kind of how it started, man. We sit down and just start banging on the piano and discovered that we could hear a little something. Sometimes putting two notes together, like in skips, and not knowing that that's that's what the makings of a chord is. All we know, it just sounds like something that we hear music, and then you start putting stuff together, and it just grew from there. But I eventually kind of got off into music and started studying and learning theory in some later years. But it was mostly a natural, just an ear thing, and just growing up listening to that stuff and sitting down and figuring out that I could hear this. And I even used to listen to classical music when I was young, 8, 9 years old, when I discovered it, and couldn't really, I wasn't seriously reading it, but I would just listen at it and go to the piano and see if I could play it by ear. And some later years, I used to tell myself, even when I was 11 and 12, that music was what I wanted to do in life. Most times people, they pick something that they think they want to do. So sometimes people get halfway through college and then change their major. But I knew when I was 12 years old that I wanted to go into music. So I said, if I am, I want to learn all I can. So I seriously hooked up with a teacher and started learning to read, learning theory, and it was amazing. So some of the little classical pieces that he started having me work on when I was reading, I had actually listened to some of them years before, trying to play them by ear. And I was curious how close I was to the notes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it all started, man.
Wow. So being a musician, I know that it's a process from when you start and to where you're trying to go. How important is it not to only enjoy that process, but sometimes was it ever frustrating for you when you wanted to get to a certain level, or did you always know what to practice? Because I know that's important, knowing what to practice effectively.
Yeah. I was always of a sort, when things started coming, and I guess because it was natural, I could naturally hear a lot of things and eventually go to the keyboard and find them. And for me, it was always just like even now, some people, even over the years, and I say it like this, that they got the nerve to ask me, is it any more I can learn? Man, stuff like that going one ear after the other. It's like you never get to the point where it ain't no more you can learn. You forever learning. Music's like technology.
Yes.
And so I always was of the sort, man, I just want to grasp as much as I can. I was kind of like a sponge. And anything I would hear, or I see a musician playing here, pick up stuff there, just like you saying, you watch me from YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people I remember when I was young that I used to love listening to. Well, my father, for one, he was probably one of the first ones, because the church that we went to before he started pastoring, he was the organist. Sometimes I would sit up on the organ bench on Sunday morning sometimes, just watching him play, man. And then other musicians, back in the day, who I heard inspired me. Some that lived in Memphis, where I'm from, or just people that I heard across the country. There was an organist who, even to this day, I call my idol as an organist. A lot of people this generation, and unless they just talk to somebody or did some in-depth searching, may have never heard of him. But his name was Alfred Bolden. And he's lived in Detroit, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people like Thomas Whitfield, even James Moore, a lot of musicians from that East Coast, Charles Nix, even Rudolph Stanfield, who's still around. The Clark sisters. They their mom, Mattie Moss Clark, she knew of him. He was like playing back in the 50s and 60s. He passed real young, probably before he was 40. Wow. It was probably in the late 60s, early 70s. But his peers in that day used to call him, the world's greatest gospel organist. And I never met him, but I got an uncle who bought his albums. And when I was 9 years old, I discovered this guy named Alfred Bolden. And he was such a phenomenal organist. Man, I used to eat, sleep, and drink his album.
Wow.
And my goal when I was young was, I said, man, I want to play just like him. And I eventually developed, into my own style. But he was a big influence on me, particularly on organ in my younger days. And I found out some later years after I met James Moore. So some kind of way we was talking about some stuff, and he's the first one that turned me on to Thomas Whitfield. And come to find out, I don't know if I did or he mentioned Alfred Bolden, and no, he mentioned, and I said, man, Alfred, that's my idol. He said, man, Alfred was everybody's idol. He said, man, Thomas Whitfield's kind of just sit up under him. But yeah, I just mentioned him, but it was a bunch of others. But I mentioned him because he was one of the big influence. But even as I was younger, there were just different musicians that I would be around or just listen to records and stuff. It was all everything I would listen to, man. I would find and hear music in it and try to play it. And then I studied a lot of classical. I studied classical piano, studied classical organ, but I did a lot of listening and stuff, and sometimes I would listen at because I studied classical piano in college. In fact, my major was piano performance. But in my spare time, I practiced all the time. Back in them days, but I would listen at a lot of classical orchestral music. Okay. Like symphonies or stuff with the entire orchestra. Because man, you can listen to a lot of that type of stuff and get just
a different sound
and ideas in terms of even stuff that you can do on the organ or piano. So there are certain directions that I go in playing, gospel, particularly in worship stuff. And so some people, you say, man, how you hear them changes? And a lot of the influence was just listening to a lot of classical orchestral stuff over the years. I'm talking about from the composer Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, even up to composers like Brahms, Tchaikovsky, and even some of the 20th century composers. Or even listening at a lot of music that you hear in like movies, like them Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, or composers like this guy. What is his name? He scored a lot of music for a lot of the movies. But that orchestra, man, you can get some ideas in terms of just chord movements, and incorporate that into what you do gospel, and it's like a whole nother level.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so basically, man, I grew up just everything I would hear, I'd be like a sponge. Wow. Just trying to grasp it all. So, but it's like you get to you get a mindset that you never learned it all. You forever learn it, anybody that gets to certain points, hey preacher, how you doing? How you doing, man? Friend of mine, yeah, from back home. People that get to a point that they feel like they learned it all, I tell people, yeah, you pretty much have gone as far as you gonna go. Because when you get to a mindset that you can't learn no more, ain't nowhere to start spiraling but down.
So you take from everything.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, country western. I mean, I grew up listening to the pop, the rock, the whole 9 yards. And of course, jazz, and of course, gospel. You always heard that because growing up in the church, and listening to different gospel stuff, having to learn stuff to teach the choir to play in church. So you always heard gospel. But man, the jazz, the pop, the rock. Yeah, I mean, there are certain types of music that's out there, and when you had a spiritual kind of foundation and root, stuff to stay away from. I mean, devil, Satan music, but a lot of music. See, back when I was younger, and even generation before me, particularly in the Pentecostal church, they thought the only music that was holy was right in terms of that you should even listen to was just church. If you listen to any other music back then, they sent you to hell. They said you going to hell for listening to that. They just categorize everything as the blues. Even though there's a blues style, there's pop, but everything that wasn't gospel, it was all put in the category. Man, you listen to that blues. And a lot of them come to find out that listening to that, certain types of things won't send you to hell. I grew up just listening to everything, and you can grasp from stuff and eventually to all put in what you do. Like if you're a gospel musician, it's like well-roundedness, and I mean I've even done some country western tracks.
Wow.
And so, man, I love it all.
Man, this man has spent some nice time sharing some wisdom with us. I just want to encourage you musicians to seek wisdom, from the older ones that have been through, where we trying to get to. And that's what we all about. I'm 22, and my team, we all in our 20s. We're just trying to learn the wisdom of where you guys have been, because that's where we're trying to go. But we appreciate the wisdom. And one thing that you would say, what is one thing that you would say, like that you would want to leave in your legacy so far, from the beginning to the end? What is one thing when you pass away that you would want to leave here? What would be the most important thing you want to leave?
Man, I would say that a person, no matter how much they're blessed with their abilities and talents, musically, since we talk about music, and no matter how far those abilities take them, because the Bible speaks about our gifts making room for us, that scripture actually may have been content talking about something else, but you can still use it when the gifts that He's given us, our abilities. It'll bring us before great men to make room, and no matter how far we go, staying humble. We stay humble by remembering that it was God that made the choice to decide to give each one of us the gift that we got.
Wow.
He could not have chose, and sometimes I actually think about it. I never been one to think highly of myself, but sometimes over my life as I played and I listen to what I'm doing, and sometimes it amazes me. and to the extent that I say, God, I can't take no credit for this. This is you, and I really just be humble. And sometimes I just almost like, man, I get touched because God could have not chose to bestow what He's put in me.
Wow.
And I'm thankful to have all my life And I was just to my parents, you know, they brought me up that I've never just tried to say, you know, oh, this me, man. I can blow folks out. I mean, it's just like God has, and it's by the grace of God, has kept me humble to realize it ain't me, but it's Him that. And so, if one thing I would leave is that no matter how much you learn, and God, because it's God that blesses without abilities, always remember that it's Him. And as long as you stay humble, I mean, the sky ain't even the limit of places that He'll take you. And so, pretty much, whatever you do, just always keep God first, and realize that it's not us, but it's God working through us.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
Oh, man.
And this is humility at its best. When you humble yourself, God will raise you up.
He'll raise you up.
We out, MC Network.
Oh, man.